NASDAQ was much, much worse, right? So you got this, big, big trend down in the SPY over here. But we are resting on the kind of the 50-day moving average. So one thing to remember, like historically when you pull back is like if you get like a multi-day pullback to a moving average or something, the probabilities of bounce are a lot better. But when you have like just a one-day big pullback and you rest on a moving average, you could bounce, but you may not. And so you have kind of a little bit of a dichotomy of what the fuck will happen today. And so, you know, where you got to just play is essentially the ranges on this thing. You can see this QQQ's like right at a sweet spot too. So that's going to be really important to kind of just understand where was the low yesterday, right? Where are the potential ranges, and then where the heck can you go? Because you don't necessarily know. Historically, like if you pull back to the 50 SMA, you got one test, two tests, three tests, right? We've been testing on the 50 SMA for like 10 times, and so we do know that that's the sweet spot for a bounce. The issue is that we've only had one down day to get there versus in the past we've had 3 or 4 down days, and so that's where I think things are going to be a little bit difficult. So what I usually do on a day like this is I make 2 lists. One list for longs, one list for shorts, and then the thing is if the market is acting like choppy, then what you want to be doing is having a list of like stocks that have earnings out or PRs out. Guys, stocks that have like fresh earnings or fresh PR have a unique ability to move irregardless of what's happening in the market, right? And so that's going to be the key to everything that happens here. And so make 2 lists, but make sure you have some earnings names too, because that's going to be really the kind of key on this thing. You can see here, there's a whole mess of kind of random gappers and stuff that are going on over here. It looks like probably this IPGP and some Costco and stuff. There's a few of them that are really running around over here. Phase for today. Costco's breaking down under its 50 SMA. You can see here, like you got like, if you look at its hourly chart, you've got this like kind of nice base over here, and now you're kind of thrusting down over this thing. I believe this is on earnings, so they beat expectations, but material witness and blah, 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 blah. So this thing may just get flushed down here. Key is going to be as long as it's got to hold under that 50 SMA for it to be really worth your time. You know, otherwise it's going to be, you know, a little bit tricky. IPGP. Hey, Tom, what's going on? IPGP may have some weakness on it too. My issue on this one's going to be more of a liquidity. It's only doing 8,000 shares in volume this morning. When you're a little bit light on volume and you gap down and you try to ORB, if there's like a spread or something like that, it becomes really tricky. And so what I usually do when I have something like this, I need to make sure that there's at least 500,000 shares in volume for liquidity purposes before I can take it. Good, 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 good. I know there's a couple small caps on here, but man, small caps suck on Fridays, I'll tell you what, because they just break your heart. But there is kind of a few that are running around here. Let's talk about ILMN real quick here. This one's also busting down on some news. Same kind of setup as Costco. You've got like this kind of base out over here, and if you break under that 50 SMA, you may catch an ORB pattern to the downside. Remember that this is a little bit thicker stock, so what you need to see is the gap down and then like that sideways movement for a period of time and then take the short on it, but it is a little bit thick. This VTVT is making a little Friday run on it. The one thing to remember with VTVT is like the float on this, so at 7 million shares, all that can happen like at the open or something like that. If you start to see it build and then it just pushes out of it, it'll move really quick because the float's so small on it. So for example, the example for the pattern that you'd want to use to trade some turd like this is what it did on the 3rd, right? Notice how like it gapped up at the open, and then you got like 3 candles kind of sideways movement, and you had that VWAP tugging up like right underneath. That's the setup that you want on something like this. If you try to trade it too fast and you go to like some 1 minute chart or something like that, the fast traders, the ones with little sticky fingers, they can pull it off, but for majority of people, it's just too fast. All that'll happen is they get long, and then it goes down 5 cents, and they get out, and then they go, and they're up and down because they're just trading on too small of a time frame. You can't see the angles properly, right? And so if you're a little slow in the head, slow in the fingers, which most of us are, right? Use a 5 minute chart and wait for this type of pattern where you push sideways, let that VWAP and 9 EMA kind of come up, and then take the shred. Go for the bigger move versus like, okay, I'm going to take 5 cents here or 10 cents here, because that just never works, right? You know, when you're just kind of ripping around for a penny here, penny there, all you get is commissions and then losses. So that's going to be the game plan for this kind of VTVT today. It's going to gap up. We know that. Wait for a tight pattern to go. And then remember today, because it's Friday, look out for the double Lutzy, meaning the last few days, what we've seen is like a lot of these kind of small cap stocks, they set up because we're so used to right now them running into the close. Because of the pot stocks, they've been running into the close. And what's been happening the last couple days is a change in structure on how they're acting, meaning they're like dumping into the close, right? And so very well, this could just be a dead cat bounce. It could pop up into resistance here and dump out into the close. People have been getting sloppy because the small cap trading's been so easy and everything is just running all day. Then now they're changing the structure, right? And allowing them to dump to fuck people over both ways. And so that's the price you pay when you deal in degenerate stocks like this. But, right, what are you going to do? This GTXI, it had a late day PR, and now this thing is really, really cooking into the open. You may see a run into the 9 EMA. It's 9 EMA is not till 4, right? So you got a little bit of upside on this thing. Same thing with VTVT. You do not want to chase this thing up, especially on a small term time frame. Let it base out before you hit it. And only if you see a perfectly clean pattern, right? You don't want to see anything too loose because you'll get smoked out. Add this Merck to your watch list today. This thing had a monster day yesterday. High relative strength, up 15% even with the market getting smoked out. I like this one a lot. You can add this meat for a potential trade too. You got a flat top breakout over here. Hat tip to Justin Mercer. Keep AMRN on your list too. This has been a daily trader for us. We've been trading it every day. It's the strongest stock in the market. Even when the market tanks, this is the one that really is been hanging loose. Andrew, what's going on, baby? I forgot your takers here. Yeah, MBEV. Look, MBEV's going to need to come out of this range here. One thing to remember with MBEV, I told you guys this yesterday. When I was grading some of the students' trades, I noticed some of you guys didn't listen. Right? When this thing gaps up, it almost always works better on pullbacks. You can hit it on the pullback toward the 9 EMA, and you get really nice thrusts up. But if you try to chase it on strength, it tends to fall back because it's got so much volume, it's up so high. As a stock gets more and more extended to the upside, what typically happens is the bottom just drops out that much quicker. And so you can't chase it on strength. Let it pop and pull back. The more extended you get, the harder it is to chase it at highs. You can't hit breakouts. You got to hit those dips, right? If you buy high, you die. That's just the nature of the game. ACAD. This one looks really this one looks actually really zesty because this one's also got relative strength. You've got your 9 EMA coming under and it's remounted to 200. For me, this probably looks like kind of a multi-day hold. I would be shocked if this thing didn't bust this 22, 23 in the next handful of days. So I'll be looking at this one. We may even take a little multi-day, little run around this one. And then just keep a couple shorts on the watch list in case the market rolls over. Roku had a nasty down day yesterday. Finally broke under this level of support. If the market starts to roll, this will be probably the first stock we hit for a potential short. If it doesn't, we'll leave it alone. Dropbox, Simon Callan, hat tip. You got a bear flag here on the daily chart. I mean, this is probably a swing short at this point, right? And so that's going to be, this thing is just kind of grinding down at this point. It looks like we're getting a little action. Not much action on the jobs report today, too. So, we may just kind of fade off here today. But test, 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 test. That one looks pretty good for potential short. XS. You got a rollover pattern over here too. You're starting to break down these levels. You've got a lot of room to fall on this one. It's got good liquidity and all that kind of fun stuff. The issue with these kind of things, we're only going to hit them if the market starts to roll over at this point, right? But you got a lot of range on this bad boy. Keep an eye on it. MNK was hot yesterday, man. We had the caveat yesterday that it needed a break under this. I took it off my list. But you can see it had that breakdown, that pullback to the VWAP, which is like your kind of quintessential pullback pattern, guys. If you're ever looking for easy pullback patterns, that's what you want to do, right? You want to let them bust down, pop into that VWAP, and then let them roll over. And if you get something that's like a 9 EMA trender like that, it ends up being really, really a good one. So something like this, now the gap is filled. You guys see this gap? So what you're going to need, you know, if this pops up green and it starts to roll back over, it goes green to red, take that for a short. That's what I'll be looking at it for too. And also watch this kind of base from yesterday. If that gap fills and it breaks yesterday's base, hey Jude, how you doing? Take this thing down. We may have a couple down days on there. A lot of times these stocks that have bad earnings, they do have second day plays where they start to roll over. So that's just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind too. Guys, it's Friday. Let's go do what we do. Let's go have a little fun. It's game time. It's showtime. My friends, my people, as always, hasta mañana. Hasta luego. Hasta miércoles. I don't know which one that is, but it sounds the coolest. All right, all right. Okay, GTXI, BTBT, boom, 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 boom. Costco. Oh, yeah. A lot of people have been asking about that IGC bounce. Look, these things are really tough, man. When you get something that's like a 5-cent stock go to 15 bucks and then like you're trying to bounce it, you could try that bounce like 3, 4, 5 damn times and it just fails. Bounce trading is super tough. Let me just tell you, bounce trading is super tough because you're going counter trend, but this is not like a bounce like in Squarespace or Roku or Apple or something, right? When you do a bounce trade on a stock that's already a smelly turd, all that happens is, right, your fingers get a little dirty. You know, when you try to bottom pick these things, that's just the nature of the game. This is a 10-cent, 20-cent stock, right? So it will probably bounce in the next couple days, but probably not anything going right now. And Bitcoin, there's not really much action in it. It's a hoe right now. You're not going to really get, I mean, it just sits around in the $6,000 range. There's not even anything to analyze on it because that fucker don't move. You know, Bitcoin, it moves as much as the US dollar these days. What's up, Mr. Buckus? So just kind of something to be just mindful of today, guys. As always, keep your watch list short. Let's go do what we do. I'll be in the chat room if anybody needs me. Peace!